Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
Tonight, our presenter is Megan Carney, who will share with us ideas for generating less waste and using fewer single-use plastics, even when being environmentally conscious feels too overwhelming. Without further ado, Megan.
So a few years ago, I was working at a job where they did a bunch of lunch and learns. And they had this woman come in and she held up a jar about this size. It's a quart-sized jar for anyone on Zoom. And she said, in our household last year, we generated this much waste. And I was super impressed. And that's the presentation that got me thinking about this topic. Oops, go that way. So I'm going to go over a bunch of specific things more into the presentation, the further I get into the presentation. But I think the general theme of this is I just had to relearn a bunch of attitudes, like a perspective that I had on the world. And so if you forget all of the specifics that I go over today, don't worry about it. It's not about the specifics. It's about approaching life in a slightly different way. But before I talk about what I needed to relearn, I want to go over some history I found while I was researching for this presentation. So I kind of got curious, how did we get to where we are today, where we have all of these plastics and we have to throw them away because some of them can't be recycled or they don't break down, right? And I was kind of surprised because what I found out was at one point, plastics were going to save us. Basically, we were running out of tortoise shells to make combs out of. And they found this miracle thing called plastic. You could form it in any shape you want. It was durable. It could last forever. And nobody really was asking the question, after I'm done with my plastic comb, where does it go? When I'm done with my toothbrush, what happens to it? And that seems super weird to think about right now, right? Because obviously more people now are thinking about, where does garbage go? How does it get recycled? But the truth is, it's not that weird for the time. Because until recently, the dominant economic model has been this linear one. We take resources from the environment. The cost is whatever it costs us to hire the bulldozer. We produce things, we use them, we throw them away. That was the dominant attitude. And now people are starting to talk about something called the circular economy, which is this idea that what we take from the environment has a cost beyond what it costs to hire the bulldozer, right? There are long-term environmental effects to the resources we use. And in addition to that, what we take out of the environment should be reused if we can, right? And like, to give credit where credit is due here, the circular economy is a fancy way of saying what some cultures have recognized for a very long time, that this idea that you just take and you use and you throw away is in the long term bad for everyone, right? Because in the long run, if we poison the environment, we are poisoning ourselves. So anyway, a little bit of history there. But that leads me to what I had to learn. Everything we consume has a cost. Like, I'm not here to put anyone on a guilt trip. This is what I really had to think about when I started trying to reduce waste. The things we want, the things we need, even if we have good intentions, everything we consume has a cost. So, as an example, I drove here in a hybrid car. It gets good gas mileage. I think that's a good choice. But the batteries weren't free, right? Those chemicals came from somewhere. It still had a cost. My car is a van. Because I have a household of 4 people and I like to go on road trips. And I got tired of trying to squeeze everyone in gear into a 4-door sedan. So does it get the gas mileage that a 4-door sedan gets? No, it uses more gas because it's a bigger car. And that's a cost. But this is, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, I am not here to judge you. Like, we all have things we enjoy doing. I go on trips. I go on planes. Those use resources, right? And it's okay. I'm not saying everyone has to live like a monk. I'm going to go over some products that worked for me, some strategies that worked for me. If those products don't work for you, I'm not judging you. I'm just giving you options. Basically, what I did was I just started looking around my house, and one at a time, I'm like, what can I do about that single-use plastic soap dispenser? How can I not make that single use anymore? And I generate way more trash each year than this quart jar. So I'm not up here to like tell you that I've got everything figured out. I don't. I'm just going to talk about my experience. Maybe it will be helpful to you. But yeah, basically, if you want to start doing this, just go around, look for little things around your house. Like, what can I do about that? And then gradually, it makes a difference. So the very first thing I noticed is that cleaning supplies use a lot of packaging. And if you are motivated, there are a bunch of recipes online. You can make lemon rosemary cleaner if you want. I'm not that motivated. It's too much work for me. So, you know, if this is something you want to pursue, yeah, obviously, I think it could be cool. It's just not what I wanted to do. You can get dish soap in a bar instead of a bottle. So this is a picture of a mug that sits on my counter. It's got dish soap in it. When I want to wash dishes in the sink, I just fill up the mug, dump it in the sink a few times. If I need to rub the sponge on it, I just reach into the cup. Works pretty well for me. You can also mix up your own dish soap if that's what you want to do, but this is just one solution that I found. And I'm going to mention this place a couple times, but there is a place in South Minneapolis called Tare Market, T-A-R-E. They have pretty much everything you could possibly want for package-free stuff. And they sell this dish soap. So you're going to see a bunch of pictures of ads here. And that's just because I wanted to show you there are options. I can talk about the things I have used, but like I said, if you want to try other things, I just want to let you know there's a bunch of other things out here. So the Grow Co, yeah, I think it's in the center there. That's available at Target. Basically, you have one plastic bottle that you can reuse, and then you get these little tiny bottles of cleaner, you mix them with water. It's worked really well for me. Grow Co is not the only one that does this. There are a bunch of other companies that make concentrated cleaners in these like smaller packages. Blue Land, which is in the center there, those little paper packets are actually compostable. So some of these places you'll find the mini packaging isn't just recyclable, it's compostable too. Toothbrushes and bathroom things are a really good place to start for things we throw away. And toothbrushes are actually a big problem because we're supposed to change them every 6 months, right? And all that plastic has to go somewhere. I found bamboo toothbrushes to work really well for me. Again, your mileage may vary. This is one of the few things where there's been one brand I tried where I was like, no, never ever buying this brand again because the bristles kept falling off. It was really terrible. But ever since then, I've had good luck. Find a brand that works for you, and the bamboo toothbrushes can actually just be thrown in the compost when you're done. So, and they even have an electric one here. I have no idea what that's all about, but you know, if it's something you want to try. Toothpaste tubes can apparently be recycled, but I really prefer toothpaste tablets. And this is one of the things that wasn't even a sacrifice, because toothpaste tablets are awesome for traveling. Like you can fit a lot of days worth of toothpaste in a little pill bottle, more than you can fit with these tubes. And we'll talk about travel a little bit more later, but these have been really, really awesome. They have fluoride and non-fluoride, you know, whatever you want to do. But Terra Market sells these, of course. Terra Market sells a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. For floss, the biodegradable floss can be expensive. And to be honest, I don't use it yet. But what I did do is I bought one of these refillable dispensers on Amazon. So now I don't throw away like that little square rectangular thing once every 6 weeks. I buy refills on Amazon, and the dispenser, I'm assuming it's going to last 200 years. I don't know. It seems pretty sturdy. For hand soap, obviously you can use a bar of soap if you want. I'm lazy, so I like to do the hand soap. And there are a ton of companies that make basically tablets that you can put in a foaming hand soap dispenser. And the packaging for the Blue Land ones, like I said, is compostable. Terra Market sells some of this stuff too. So when it runs out, just pop the tablet in, let it dissolve, put the lid back on, and then you have more hand soap. And you don't have to throw away the bottle every single time. For your hair, this is another one of those things that's great for travel, because these shampoo bars are not a liquid or a gel. And this is a local company, which is why I'm highlighting them. They are not the only company that makes shampoo bars. There's a ton of them out there. And I actually really like their shampoo and conditioner. But, you know, again, try it if it doesn't work for you. There are a bunch of other brands that you can use.
Excuse me, Megan, are those, again, you dissolve them in a bottle or something?
She was asking whether these are things you dissolve in a bottle. Nope, this is just a bar that's in your shower. So like you lather it up and then you can rub it on your hair. Yeah. So I'm gonna put on my middle school teacher hat for a second, and we're all gonna talk about some stuff we don't normally talk about. If you deal with periods or incontinence, there are options for that that are not disposable. So there are menstrual cups, there's a bunch of period underwear. Some of the people that make period underwear also make incontinence underwear. So if this is a thing you would like to pursue, I can tell you that both of these things work pretty well. If you are the wash one, wear one camp when you travel, the period underwear brands that I've used actually work for that. And if you have never tried a menstrual cup, when you travel, as long as you have a bathroom and a way to wash your hands, they're actually not that hard to use. So, all right, done with health class. Just wanted people to know there are options. I hinted at this a little bit before, but a lot of these products have really simplified my travel life because of that stupid. I started traveling before we had to pull out the stupid bag of liquid and gels when you go through the TSA checkpoint. And I still hate doing it. The more of these products that I pick up, the less I have to carry through the TSA checkpoint. And honestly, for like shorter weekend trips, sometimes I end up with no liquids or gels bag at all. All right, so we're going to talk about some more kitchen stuff, because that's another area where you have a lot of plastic. I have switched to glass and silicone for food storage. So these are two things I've tried, which means I can give you more details about them, but there are definitely other brands. The Pyrex stuff is great because it can actually go into the oven, not the plastic lids, but like the glass things can go into the oven. So like you can prep food, put it out on the counter, and then stick it straight into the oven to cook. I love being lazy in the kitchen. That's, yeah. So the Pyrex ones are good for that. These are Silipint lidded bowls. Again, they're not the only people that make silicone bowls, but I like them because they're good for freezing. Better than glass, I think. You can also stick them in the oven if you want. And they are supposedly leak proof, though I haven't tested that. And if you are an Instant Pot person, the silicone stuff can actually go in the Instant Pot and be cooked. So most of the stuff I talked about already was a pretty easy buy this, not that. Composting was one of the things I really struggled with. Let's see if I can. At first I tried composting in my backyard, but I didn't turn the pile often enough or water it. I don't know. Anyway, by the time I had filled the compost pile up, the stuff at the bottom hadn't composted. I had a small backyard. I kind of gave up on that. I've tried doing the little compost container in the counter until you take it to the drop off. The container got super gross. It stunk. I didn't like it. So that didn't work. So I thought maybe I'll use one of those baby diaper things. Like those are supposed to keep in stink. And they do. But the compostable bag started composting before I took it out. And the container still got gross. So what I have finally settled on after trying all these things is I have an ice cream bucket. I put compostable bags in it. It sits in the freezer so it doesn't stink. When the bag is full, I tie it up, stick that in the freezer, and then I put a new bag in. And then I do a run to the organics drop off probably once every 6 weeks, whenever the freezer fills up. So I live in St. Paul, and St. Paul's composting is fairly generous. It's really nice. You can put meat bones in there. And as an aside, you can put Kleenex, Q-tips, small bits of cotton rags, things like pizza boxes that can't be recycled because they have too much food on them. All of that can go in St. Paul compost. Like, depending on where you live, might be different for you. Anyway, this is the solution I settled on because I live in a place with a small yard. If you live in, like if you have a little bit of land, I know what some people do is they'll build like 3 compost bins and they fill up one and they leave it. And then they'll fill up another and they fill up the third. And then by the time they filled up the third, the first one's done because it sat there for 3 years. And if you have the land to do it, it's a great system. I do not. But anyway, that was my composting journey. Another thing is my second. This is a napkin / towel I made out of a t-shirt. If you're crafty, this is a great way to reuse things, especially t-shirts, which tend to wear out like here and maybe here. And then you have all this fabric left, but what are you going to do with it? So this is 2 sets of directions. They're pretty basic. You cut out a rectangle, sew around the edge, turn it inside out, and then you sew up the little corner. Yeah. If you're crafty, it's a fun project. It also gets at one issue, which I have not managed to solve because it's just really hard, is clothes disposal. So organic fibers like cotton and wool can be composted or recycled. Clothes, obviously clothes that are still donatable can go to Goodwill. But if you have worn out clothes that are synthetic fabrics, you know, like I have a lot of, because I do outdoor stuff and cotton is bad for getting wet and cold. There really aren't a lot of good ways to get rid of old clothing for the synthetic fiber stuff. So I don't have great options for it, but one of the things I like to do is things like this. So at least it has a second life before it gets thrown away. And also, we don't have paper towels in our kitchen anymore. We don't have napkins. We use rags and we use t-shirt napkins. And I'm perfectly fine with it. Probably not everybody who visits is, but. So I have tried some things that have not worked. Again, your mileage may vary. Those beeswax wraps, I don't know who they've actually worked for, but I have never managed to wrap anything in those like beeswax cloth wraps and had it work. The silicone Ziploc bags, I have a couple of them. They are so hard to clean. Like, I just gave up. I don't use them anymore. I used to have like produce bags for the grocery store, so I didn't have to get the plastic bags. And I found out I always forgot them. They're actually not necessary. I just kind of group things in the cart, and I've never had complaints yet. Things I haven't managed to solve, kids' lunch stuff. So I don't know if you've ever dealt with like taking, if your kids are going to like a camp and they're doing a field trip somewhere, a lot of the times they will explicitly say, we are throwing away whatever container your child brings lunch in. Like, it is not coming back. Right? So like, don't send your fancy silicone dish because it's not coming back. So that I haven't quite figured out how to deal with. We still have a few Ziploc bags around the house. I don't have a great solution for those. And outdoor clothing I constantly struggle with. Wool is expensive. Cotton is generally bad. Synthetics are hard to get rid of. So I don't know. Pick your poison, I guess. So getting back to like the philosophical part of this presentation, I think this is really the question that the woman's presentation that I saw several years ago brought up. Like, can we live good lives and still be stewards of the earth? And perhaps I am naively optimistic, but I think so. I think we can do the trade-offs here. I realize this is kind of an eye chart as a diagram, but if you want to learn more, this is from an economist called Kate Raworth. And she champions this thing called the donut economy. The idea that there is this ecological ceiling where if we take too much, we're going to destabilize the environment, and that's bad. If we take too little, we're not going to satisfy our basic needs, and that's also bad. But there's a sweet spot there, right? If we're careful about it, if we make smart decisions, we can live below that ecological ceiling and still give people a good quality of life. So that's what that image is. And as an aside, her book talks a lot about the gross domestic product and where it came from. So another minor little history lesson. In 1937, we're recovering from the Great Depression. Simon Kuznets is working for the US government, and he is given the task, find a good way to measure if our policies are working to pull us out of the Great Depression. So he came up with this idea of the gross domestic product. Basically, what are we producing as a nation? And that has become the dominant measure of whether an economy works. Are we producing more than we were last year? Are we growing? But even Kuznets himself recognized that the GDP was an imperfect measure. It was overly simplistic. We cannot grow for the sake of growth. We have to grow with a purpose. Growth of what and for what? This is a direct quote from him. And that is one of the ideas that I found researching that got me thinking about like consumption and the economy and what do we consider success to be, if that makes any sense. And the argument that Kate Raworth makes is that infinite growth isn't desirable, not for the GDP, not for a tree in the forest, not for us, not for anything. And this is what ties back into the circular economy, right? We can grow, we can have good lives, we can consume, even though that consumption has a cost, but we need to understand the systems we inhabit, how our actions affect them, and operate within that ecological ceiling. So this book is from 2018, I think, but it's one of those books that kind of reorganized my brain. So I recommend it. I thought it was pretty cool. And that's the end of my material. I wanted to leave these resources here for you. Terra Market has 2 locations, Northeast Minneapolis and South Minneapolis. They are the cutest store, but if you have like a local co-op, co-ops tend to have a bunch of these products too. Like, oh, what are some of them? Huh? Yeah, Whole Foods has some of these products. Yeah.
Could you say those names louder? Well, but it's thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and there's
East Side.
yeah, there's the East Side Co-op and there's like Mississippi something. Mississippi Market.
East.
Yeah. So co-ops are good for finding the package-free products. A bunch of the stuff you can order online too. You know, so wherever you are, there's a way to get these products. This is a link to the Atlantic article about clothing donation and waste if you're interested. Yeah, so that's my presentation. Does anybody have questions? Or I would love to hear what other people do who have started doing some of this stuff too.
To get rid of stuff that you don't really need for one thing more, there's a website called Free Cycle. You can just pass things on to people you don't need.
Yeah, she's recommending the Free Cycle website for giving away stuff. One of the tips that the woman I saw talked about is going to Goodwill to look for something, or like a thrift store, because when you buy something from a thrift store, you don't generally get the packaging with it, so you have less to throw away. Yeah.
And if along that line, Savers, which might not look like a thrift store, is a thrift store, and on Tuesdays, if you're of a good age, it's 40% off.
She's recommending Savers as a thrift store because they have
And
a discount on Tuesdays.
Might be up on Central and about 45th in Northeast. If you admire anything, I'm wearing it.
I like thrift store fashion. Yeah.
You too.
Concerning the synthetic clothing, if you have Patagonia brand clothing, they will accept their synthetic clothing back to recycle.
Oh, sweet. I didn't know that. So Patagonia will recycle their clothing for synthetic fibers, which is good to know.
Does anyone know where old eyeglasses? That'd be just a cool thing to know.
I don't. I have heard of
Why
it.
is it funny using table glasses?
Yeah, Pearl Optical will take them and if people who don't have money for glasses.
I saw someone over
Oh, I
there.
was just gonna say, you go straight with the action in bars and they're available at Fresh Time, Whole Foods, different places. If your hair is like short, it's okay. If your hair is long, it's gonna be a lot more work. So, but I really last forever too. And then I tried to Savers today in Woodbury and it was a crazy nut house there of people. You could not even park there, so. It's like your day or something.
Yeah. 40% off.
Yeah, it's like that house, so.
Yeah.
If you do home construction, there's a lot of reuse centers doing that. Hamilton County also Anyone who lives in Hampton County should take 6 loads there of like an extra wood, and then anyone can go there and use that wood. So,
Yeah, so he was recommending the reuse center.
Facebook, yes.
Yeah, which is a super great place to both drop off stuff and to pick up stuff. Like I think they take paint, right? Like you can bring in mostly full cans of paint and then
Okay.
people can come in and like maybe they don't want that exact shade blue, but they can mix it and get what they want. And then your old paint has somewhere to go. It doesn't just get wasted. So yeah, so I think the like moral of the story is whatever you're trying to do, you can just take a look around and maybe there's a way to do it in a slightly more ecologically sensitive way. And sometimes that's donating something rather than getting rid of it. Sometimes that's just figuring out how to get something with less packaging. Did you have something you wanted to say, Audrey? Or?
I know, at least one rover who will take the green propane canisters and refill them.
Oh, cool.
And stuff. So.
Yeah, she says there's a rover that'll refill those propane canisters, which I think otherwise you just have to like puncture and recycle, right?
As far as I know, most people take home recycling except Hamilton County, maybe Ramsey County, I don't know. No, I'm talking about the big green ones, not the,
Okay.
those you cannot put in recycling.
We have some chat messages.
Oh,
Do you want me to read them or would you like to read them? That's the top one.
Oh, so there's a Branch Basics company that does concentrated cleaners. Oh, and powder toothpaste, I suppose. That's a really good option too. Dav green bins. Oh, I didn't know you could. Oh, cool. I didn't know there was like local pickup for clothing anywhere.
You can make stuff sacks out of pant legs.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, and someone posted about laundry sheets, which I forgot to mention, but are also awesome. Like instead of buying those things of like big tubs of laundry detergent, they're just these little sheets you tear off and you throw in the water. They dissolve, they work great, they're super light. You can buy like an Armageddon's worth of laundry detergent and have it ready. It doesn't take up much space. It's pretty great.
Or if you don't want to use those, just even find the powder, but it's not very easy to find powder detergent.
Yeah, so my personal experience has been that the laundry sheets dissolve better than the powder, but
The other thing is the co-ops have refillable bottles for dish soap, hand soap, laundry detergent.
oh, cool. Yeah, so a lot of the co-ops will have refillable things, so you bring your own bottle and then you don't have to have another bottle to get rid of at home. And that goes for things like oil or soaps, I guess, in some places. Let's see what else we've got.
They're like the Buy Nothing group.
Yeah, so there are several, I've heard of several kinds of groups called something like Buy Nothing, where you can search for stuff that you want or maybe give away stuff, find a place to get rid of it. So those are awesome too. I always try to give something away where I think it will be used, because that's important to me. Yeah.
Megan? Yeah. In the lobby of every Cub grocery I've ever seen, there is a bin where you can bring plastic bags that you acquired while buying your groceries, especially fresh fruit, and you can put them in there and they will get recycled.
Oh yeah,
It's really responsible for a major change to do.
Yeah, so there's a Cub Boots near my house that has one of those bins for plastic bags. If you keep an eye out for opportunities, like if you have old car seats, twice a year, Target does a car seat recycling program where they'll take those and they actually get made into products, which is super cool because there's nothing else you can do with an old car seat.
I don't know where it is, but I remember seeing in the Minneapolis Farmers Market that there's some kind of operation that recycles electronics, computers and stuff.
I know the name and I'm blanking on it. I think they're in sorry, she was talking about a place that recycles electronics.
Yeah.
I think it's called Geek House. No.
Geek something.
Yeah, Geek something. So this isn't something, another option, and I haven't personally used them, but there is a company called Gridwell that some of my friends have used and they like. It's a subscription service, but they recycle some of the things that the city does not recycle or aren't easily recycled. Like, so they'll pick up for batteries, electronic cables, plastic bags. And I think basically everything Gridwell recycles, if you're willing to put time and effort into it, you can drive the stuff there yourself. But, you know, I'm a fan of easy, so if that fits into your life.
There are also fix-it clinics. So if you want to try and stretch the lifetime on something, people will help you fix it. They're often at libraries.
Yeah,
Dakota
the
County.
Minnesota Tool Library is, a friend started that. And they have everything. If you need a saw or something like that, that you don't want to go out and buy, you just have one project, you can go check it out.
Yeah, so the two suggestions were the Minnesota Tool Library and also Fix-It classes
Yeah.
are available in some places, so you can hold on to your things for longer. I think we're at, do you want me to wrap up? Because we're at 8.
2 last chats if you want to
Okay.
share them there.
So Kowalski's has a plastic bag recycling bin, I guess, too, and the Ramsey County Recycling website is also a good resource. Thank you for mentioning that, because they'll tell you places where you can drop off things, like old batteries or electronics or things like that.
There's a place that also called the Prop Shop. It's kind of like Goodwill, although for people who are trying to start a household, there's a sliding scale. But if you don't have any money, you can get furniture there for free. It's kind of cool.
Oh,
But the prices are actually pretty good too if you just want to go there and buy them. And they have LPs for that.
so is the prop shop,
The Prop Shop is a Eden Prairie.
it's like a thrift store kind of?
So it's a lot like Goodwill, but it's for people who are, I think, under 8,000 or low income people, you can just go and take stuff.
Sweet.
It's a nice concept.
Yeah, so he's saying the prop shop is kind of like a thrift store, but with a pay as you can afford policy. So you can just take stuff if that's what you need to do.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.